Hello friends, and welcome to another episode of the Simple Knit podcast. My name is Eleanor. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Simple Knit Co. And you can also find me here on YouTube chatting about whatever craft I'm up to at the moment. Today I have some knitting and crochet to talk to you about, so if that sounds like something that tickles your fancy, feel free to pour yourself a drink, grab a project and hang out with me for a little while we talk craft. It is just after 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning here in Brisbane, Australia. And yeah, I'm halfway through a 4-day weekend, which has been a real treat. Just to have a bit of a longer break. I feel like I've gotten all of my busy work jobby things done for the weekend. So now I have 2 full days to just chill out and do whatever I want. So I've got the last dregs of my morning coffee here. Yeah, let's get talking. So I'm in a bit of a pink moment currently. There's quite a bit of pink in my finished objects in my works in progress. But the first finished object that I'll show you is my only non-pink one. So I've got this pair of just vanilla socks that I made. These are just in some old Knit Picks Felici. The colorway is Rustic Cabin, and one's on a blocker, one's not, because I only have one functional sock blocker at the moment. But this, yeah, as you can see, they're sisters, not twins. I didn't bother to try and make them match. But they're just a simple vanilla sock, 64 stitches on a 2mm needle, and usually around 20 rows of 2x2 ribbing, and then a slip stitch heel flap and gusset. Just a sock. I think I said this last time because I feel like these were work in progress last time I checked in with you. I have noticed these are like a little bit loose on my sock blocker, which my socks didn't used to be, which I could go and get a tape measure out, but clearly my gauge has loosened up a little bit. So I think the next time I'm going to knit a pair of socks for myself, I'm going to try to go down to maybe 60 stitches. If I just kind of pinch it out, that's about, yeah. It's kind of the looseness is about 4 stitches or so. So I'll try going down to 60 stitches and see how that fits. But yeah, these were just my carry around in my purse knitting. So there's one little finished bit, and next little finished bit we'll also talk about quite quickly because this is another project I've made 100 times before. This is a Roku hat, which is a pattern by Olga Berea-Kefelian. If you have watched this podcast before, you have heard that pattern before because I've made about 500 of these. This was in some yarn that was in my stash, some leftovers from some old projects. It is the Jagera Plains 8-ply merino in the colorway pink. It is a super highlightery pink. I knit the medium size on a 4mm needle. When I changed, so the body of the hat I knit on a small circumference, like what is it, like the 16-inch, that's like 40cm circular needle, and then I switched to magic loop to do the decreases, and I think my gauge is slightly looser on magic loop, so I think next time I do that I might go down a needle size, so knit the body on the small circumference 4mm needle and then go to like a 3.75 when I switch to magic loop, just because I can, especially like in the little decrease bits, I can feel that my gauge is ever so slightly looser. But yeah, this was another just like sit around, carry in my purse project. I just needed something to take around with me to have as my craft on the go, and I don't know if this will be for me. I do love this color, but I do already have a pink hat that I made for myself, but it's not an 8-ply hat, it's a 4-ply hat. So I do love this color. So I like to say I might give this to someone, but I'll probably just keep it for me. So the next finished object that I have for you today is a little pair of slippers. So this pattern is the Simple House slipper from Temple of Knit. I can't remember her human name, but her blog and her Instagram handle is Temple of Knit. And I have made this pattern before many years ago. It was originally just a kind of a recipe on a blog post and that blog post is still live. She does have a version of the pattern that's been like graded and has multiple sizes and all of that you can purchase on Ravelry, but the original blog post with the basic recipe is still live. So that's what I used to make this little pair of slippers for myself. So this yarn is a mystery 12 ply acrylic that I inherited from my mum. Usually I don't take yarn that people try to give me because I don't need more stuff in my house, but I think the reason I originally took this is because a number of years ago I was Louise Belcher for Halloween, and this was like the perfect color of yarn to make the little bunny ears hat for Louise Belcher costume. So I still had some left over. Actually, I still have quite a lot left over. So I decided to just make a little pair of slippers for running around the house. Ironically, I don't know if it's not ironically, it's just factually, when I finished these, it was still kind of cool, but I didn't want to wear them before I recorded a podcast because I didn't want them to get dirty, and now it's hot. So I probably will just be putting these away until next year. But they're just, yeah, a really simple pattern. It's all, so you start by knitting this portion flat in garter stitch, and then you convert it to knitting in the round to knit the rest of the foot. So it's all knit stitches. You do not do a single purl. If that is a problem for you, I don't mind purling, but if that's a thing that is exciting to you, well, there you go. So that's kind of it. I joined the back seam. I just did a double crochet along the back seam. I think at the time I couldn't be bothered to find a needle. I just didn't feel like sewing, so I just did a little double crochet, and I actually have the seam on the outside so that it doesn't rub against my heel. And the only other little trick that I do with this pattern is when I'm going from knitting flat to knitting magic loop for the foot, I cross over the last and the first stitch. So let me just grab something that's on a knitting needle so I can kind of show you. So I will have my 2 needles like this ready to do magic loop, and then I will take so this is the kind of the live stitch. Actually, the live stitch would be on the front needle. This is not going to work because I'm knitting this in the round, but usually I'll have it so the live stitch is on the needle facing me. Actually, the one facing you. Let's just do so it's like a mirror image for you. Whatever. So I just take the last stitch and the first stitch like that and just cross them over. And then that just kind of stops there being any sort of little gap or any like loose stitch at the top of the foot. And also it means that last row I have the purl bump on the outside, but the working yarn is coming from the back needle. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. But you can kind of see, if you look there, that those first 2 stitches are twisted. And it just makes it, I don't have to do any kind of seaming or repairing. It just kind of holds it together quite nicely. But yeah, this is a really great little pattern. Very straightforward, very simple. Be a great gift. Yeah, just a little pair of slippers. So the last finished object I have to talk to you about today is the one that I am wearing. I will pop a little video of me wearing it so you can see kind of how it looks when I'm not sitting down. But this is the Harvey Wallbanger jumper by Thea Coleman. And it was a work in progress last time you saw me, and I was just gushing about how much I loved this project, and I still feel exactly the same. This is, I think, one of my favorite things I've ever made. It looks great, it fits great, I love it. So Harvey Wallbanger, it's a pattern, Thea Coleman, as I said. I've never knit one of Thea's patterns before, but she's a, prolific knitwear designer, kind of more known for her cable patterns, but I absolutely love this kind of 70s vibe striped jumper. So the original pattern is written for you to have two contrast colors. So you have this kind of darker color as the main color, and then in the original pattern, in each of these little, in each of the contrast sections, you have two little stripes. So there's like one big stripe of the main color and then two little stripes. But what I did was I used a color gradient yarn. So the main color I have here is Bendigo Woolen Mills Classic 8-ply in chocolate, and the contrast is Bendigo Woolen Mills Prism in the colorway Enchanted, which is this beautiful transition of purples, pinks and oranges. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So I just used the gradient yarn as just knit it straight, kind of how the colors came out of the ball. I didn't do any sort of color management or yarn management. I just knit it. So I knit the third size of this pattern, and I believe I used the recommended needle sizes. So most of it is knit on a 4.5 millimeter needle, and then for some of the ribbing, for not all of the ribbing, but some of the ribbing, you use a smaller needle, which I did a 4, which I think is what the pattern wants you to do. Didn't make any changes to the pattern. Actually, no, I didn't. The only thing, it says use whatever cast on you want, but it suggests a cabled cast on, which I hate. So I just did a German twisted cast on, which is probably my favorite because it has a nice stretch. I like the way it looks in rib. It has actually looks quite similar to how a normal person's cabled cast on would look, but whenever I do a cabled cast on, it just ends up crazy tight, and I don't like any sort of knitted cast on. I much prefer like a long tail or something like that. So this jumper is knit in pieces. So I started with the sleeves, which is what I will usually do for a pieced garment, because I will use my first sleeve kind of as a big gauge swatch. So if things are really off or I don't like it, it's not quite as much to have to rip out and start again. I think this pattern is originally written for worsted weight, but I did use a DK weight yarn, but I just used the same needle size and I got like bang on stitch gauge, and I think my row gauge was actually pretty close as well. I used all the measurements as per the pattern. The thing I am most thrilled about, I mean, I'm thrilled about the whole thing. I think it looks great, but as I said before, I had no intention to do any sort of color management with how the colors came out from the ball of Enchanted, mainly because according to the yardage of the pattern, I should have been running pretty close to using up all of my 200 grams. I had one 200 gram ball of the contrast color. I have heaps left over, so I didn't really have to be worried, but I wasn't sure. So I just figured it'll be what it'll be. It'll look cool regardless. But what I can't believe, and all of the yarn deities were smiling on me, that the sleeves, while not a perfect match, are basically a pretty good match. So I knit the two sleeves, and you knit them bottom up, and then you knit the front piece and the back piece. And yeah, I did front and then back. If you have a look at this side seam, you would have been able to see it better in the little video I did. But the colors, stripes, matched up perfectly. Not even kind of matched up. They matched up perfectly. I don't know how, I don't know why. Even with like the stitch count on the sleeves are different to the stitch count on the bodies. So how I got these complete repeats, if I would have started with the body, I don't think that would have happened, but I started with the sleeves, so it did. And as I was seaming it, as I made it, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. They're starting at about the same point. And then as I was seaming it, it's seamless, flawless. Even these little two stripes at the top where like you split the ball as you're doing the shoulder decreases, the same color. Just incredible. I couldn't have done it if I tried, but it happened. And look, if that's, my one good lucky moment for my entire life, I'm happy with that. I think it's just unbelievable. So, you know what? Good things do happen sometimes. So, and not thinking through anything sometimes does pay off. But even despite, you know, with my perfect stripes, it's just a really beautiful jumper with the all over eyelet detail. It's quite light, it feels quite airy. It is still warm, but that could be because it would be, at least 25 degrees Celsius already this morning. And I know that's hot. It's kind of like temperate, I would say, for Brisbane, but hot for everyone else on the planet. And like, this is warm enough because it's 100% wool, but the little eyelets just give it a little, make it a little bit breezy, a bit light. Yeah, it was a really super fun pattern. Because you're doing stripes and you're doing a little repeat, it went by so fast. There is quite a bit of purling. So if that's something that is I think there's actually probably more purl than knit stitches within the garment. If that's something that you don't like, that's on you. It's really not a problem for me. The one little thing that I would have changed, and I think I realized probably halfway through the first sleeve, is I knit this on my wooden liquor needles, because the main, like when you're doing the little eyelet repeats, there's a purl 3 together. That would have been easier where I'm using my sharper like metal needles. I've got my higher sharps. That would have been easier to do the purl 3 togethers with those rather than my wooden needles, which are quite a bit blunt, a bit more blunt anyway. But my 4.5 is definitely my most used tip, so it is the bluntest of all of them. It wasn't impossible, it was still doable, but probably would have been easier had I used a sharper needle, but it wasn't enough for me to like rip back or switch over. I just kept going, and yeah, I love it. I hope that we're having a warm weekend, but hopefully it'll get cooler again so I can still get a little bit of wear out of this year. Brown is not usually a color that I gravitate towards, so be interesting to see how this fits in my wardrobe. But that being said, I did make my weekender in a kind of a brownie toned yarn last year, and that's fit in really easily. So it's not you know, I don't have a color scheme, I just wear everything. So yes, I highly recommend this pattern. Highly recommend using like this color changing yarn. I think it looks really cool with the gradient effect. I will stop talking about this jumper now, but yeah, you should make one. It's really great. So now on to some works in progress, and the first one I have to show you is my last pattern in the pink series that we're going with. This is just a blanket that I cast on a little while ago just to have something to carry around with me. It's a little crochet blanket, and to be honest, I kind of worked on it very focusedly for about a week or so and then put it down and haven't picked it up because I have some deadline crocheting that I'm doing that I'll talk about in a moment. But this is just a Chevron crochet blanket. The yarn that I'm using is Lion Brand Mandala. I'll show you what it looks like. This is a full skein. I'm still not all the way through the first ball, but it's just kind of a self-striping, I would say, yarn in these kind of pink and purples, which I think are really cute, really sweet colors. This colorway is called Wood Nymph, which is a choice that I would not have made. Nymph, yes. Wood, no. Like that is not, I don't get Wood Nymph vibes from these colors, but I'm not Mrs. Lion Brand, so it's not my job to name the yarns. But if they would like some fearless feedback from me, that would be it. It's just a 100% acrylic yarn, about an 8-ply weight, and I am crocheting this blanket on a 5.5mm crochet hook. It's actually a pattern from this old pattern book that I have. It's the Cleckheaton Handmade Gifts. It's called the Chevron Pram Cover, and that's what it looks like. They have used a couple of different colorways to stripe, and I'm just using a self-striping yarn that will play out as it may. I originally bought 2 skeins of the Mandala, but I felt like from getting this far through the pattern, or through the first skein, I decided to buy a third, because I think, I mean, I still have probably about half the ball left, and so, but like just 2 of those didn't feel like a substantial enough blanket. I'm not really thinking that it's going to be a pram blanket. I don't even know if this is going to be for me or for someone else, but I just wanted it to be a nice lap blanket size, and it's fine. It's an acrylic yarn. This actually is pretty nice to work with, and yeah, this is just something that I can pick up and put down without much thought, and it'll be done when it's done, and it may be for me, maybe for someone else. That is in the hands of future Eleanor to make a decision about. So this will probably be an off and on for quite a while project. If I have not much else to talk about or I make significant progress, I'll show you, but I probably won't show you again until it is finished. I have 2 other works in progress. One that I'm quite a substantial amount of the way through and is on a deadline. So it's a gift crochet. I am such a good person. I'm doing so much gift making this year. It's just, you know, really, really wonderful. So this pattern is called the Relaxon shirt by Carolina Zuschlag. That's a little photo, just a black and white printed one, but it's just kind of an oversized shirt with a little granny stripe detail. I thought it looked really cool, and it looked kind of like, so it's my best friend's birthday at the end of October. I'm going down to visit him, so I thought I would make him a birthday present. I've never made him a garment before. Why is everyone so tall is my question. So this is, and in this pattern, it kind of doesn't really have sizes. So you use what you're supposed to do is use your body measurements to calculate how big the shirt needs to be. But obviously my friend doesn't live here, and also I don't trust him to measure anything. So I used a jumper that I have that I know is the size that he would wear. So I just used that to make my estimations of the measurements. So it kind of has 4 measurements that you take from your body or from a garment, and then instructions for how to construct the shirt around those measurements. She also has an unlisted YouTube video that goes through the pattern and shows her making the pattern as you go, which I found really helpful. I'm not great at really more detailed crochet patterns. I'm not as great at kind of reading them and understanding what's going on, especially anything with like a chart. I'm still not 100% confident reading those. So having the written instructions along with a video to watch to see, like, when she says this is what she means, is really, really helpful. So the construction of this garment is really cool. I've actually started the second half because the first half got too big to carry around, and as I said, I'm on a deadline, so I'm wanting to get it done. So they've just started the second side, and so this is how it looks when you start. So you're kind of starting from here, working outwards for the 2 halves. So that's like the little nubbit of the sleeve, and that's the body, which is really cool. And then eventually this is like half of the shirt. So I'm just at the stage, I've done all of the side, like length and width. I just have to do the little button placket bit at the front and a little bit extra at the back, and then that first half will be done. But you can kind of see that's how it comes together, which I think is really, really cool. As I said, I had a little moment of doubt. I was like, is this too big? And then I remembered, like, I am not over 6 feet tall. So, and like my friend does prefer like more like oversized fits of things as well, and he's quite tall. So it's fine. I just had like a moment of self-doubt. Oh, you can tell that that's been kind of sitting crushed up in a little ball. But yeah, it's just going around and back and forth over and over again. It's quite simple once you get started and once you have your measurements. I think the pattern is originally written to be crocheted in 4-ply, so like a fingering weight yarn. I'm using 8-ply cotton. So the main yarn that I'm using is, these are just 4 Seasons yarns from Spotlight. So this is Flinders 100% cotton in the natural colorway, and this little stripe is the Brighton cotton blend, which is a 50-50, I think, cotton and acrylic blend, and this is called Bottle Melange. So it's just like a nice, slightly more dynamic green. They didn't have a green that I liked in the Flinders, so I used this one, and I figured because it's just a small stripe, if it was the whole shirt, because this is heavy, having the cotton acrylic would be quite sweaty, but it's just this little stripe, so I figure that won't make much of a difference. Most of it is just the 100% cotton. This will be a really nice, just like beach summer fun shirt. And yeah, as I said, I'm on a deadline, so until the end of the month. I guess with everything that I've done, I'm about halfway through. I'm pretty sure, like, I'm not stressed about getting it done, but I hate deadlines, anything that's a deadline. The fact that I've started this so early is a minor miracle. And, or even, you know, I would love to have it done with heaps of time to spare and be so relaxed about it, but I know that's not me. So I'm being really good and making sure I really consistently work on it a little bit every day. I'm at a point, like, as I said, I've started the second half. I'm not worried, but I know myself and my own ability to procrastinate. So I'm just really making sure that I stay on target. And although I haven't told my friends that I'm making this for him, and God knows none of my real life friends watch this because they're bored enough of me talking in real life, I haven't told him that specifically this is what I'm making, but I have said, you're going to love your birthday present, so I have to finish it. I've given myself a hard deadline because I had thought to myself, oh, if I don't get it done for his birthday, it's Christmas is pretty soon, so that's fine. But no, I've given myself a hard deadline now, so I have to get it done. So yeah, that is my main crochet project. So between that and the blanket, I had been crocheting a lot and not knitting very much. And although like crocheting is very fun, any sort of fiber art is fun, like knitting really is my love, and I didn't have a knitting project on the needles, and that was making me a bit sad. So I cast on this. So this is the Ripple Crop Worsted by Jessie May, and this is in Bendigo Woolen Mills Rustic 8-ply in the Snow Cloud colorway. So this is the same yarn I used to make the Prairie Skies jumper that would have been in the last couple of episodes. And for both that, and actually for this jumper as well, I used not even just like slightly less yarn than I was meant to, like way less yarn than I was meant to. So the Bendigo yarn comes in 200 gram balls. For both of these jumpers, I have a 200 gram ball that is completely untouched. And based on the yardage in the pattern, I should have used more than half of that last ball. Like, it wasn't like I just needed a touch of the last one. Like, I should have used most of all of the skeins. I should have only had maybe like 50 grams left. But this, I still have an untouched 200 gram ball. And even with this bit of knitting, I still have some of this. So I had that left over. I have about the same proportion left over of this chocolate color. And from the Nakraga jumper that I made, that cable jumper that's in the last episode as well, I have 2 full skeins and change. So having that yarn, I don't like having yarn without a plan in my stash. So it was kind of not like stressing me out. That's an exaggeration. But I was just thinking about it a lot, that I had this like quite significant amount of yarn that didn't have a plan. So because I've already made garments in these, I wanted to make something that looked quite different from because they'll be in the same yarn. I wanted the finished product to have quite a different vibe. I mean, I could just make an endless number of hats, but I kind of didn't want to do that. I may still do that with the brown yarn because that's untouched as of yet, but I figured so I was looking through the patterns that I already own, telling a story in a logical manner. Didn't want to buy a new pattern, so I just thought I'd look through the patterns that I already own. So when I have made the Ripple Crop before, but it was the fingering weight version. I made that in some pink like cotton Cartier yarn, super cute. But when I made that originally, due to me like being a dummy, I originally bought the worsted weight version of the pattern because that Cartier yarn is marketed as like a DK weight. And even though I cast on the stitches for like 2 or 3 sizes, because I thought, oh, it looks a bit thin and this is a worsted weight pattern, I cast on a few sizes up, it was still just like teeny tiny. And like looking at the yarn, even though it's like a thick and thin textured yarn, it was more of a fingering weight. So then I went back, bought the fingering weight version of the pattern, cast that on. Love that top. But I have the ripple crop worsted, which actually it's called the ripple crop worsted, but all of the yarns that they recommend, that Jessie recommends, are all DK weight yarns, which is whatever. So having an 8-ply DK weight yarn, I had that pattern already. I really like the ripple crop. The worsted version is designed to be a little bit more fitted, kind of more like a t-shirt. And I thought, you know what, I actually do wear despite the climate, whatever, I do wear my shorter sleeved knits quite a bit. So I figured this will be an easy project. I'm not in a rush, not on a deadline. It's just 3x3 rib for quite a while. I'm able to add quite a bit of length to it. I think I don't want it to be too cropped. I will add a bit of length. Well, I'll knit the length that it says to do before you do the front and back shaping. And I might add some length. As you can see, I have plenty of yarn to play with. So yeah, once again, not on a deadline. We'll kind of pick this up and put it down. The 3x3 rib, I can just like knit on the go. Be an easy project to have just carrying around. I remember when I made the first one, the 3x3 rib really annoyed me. I found it really hard to get into the rhythm of it. Maybe it's because it was on finer, like thinner yarn, like a cotton acrylic blend that's not as fun to work with as wool. And so that kind of did make me pause before casting this on, but I figured, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And this time around, maybe it's because I have a few more years of knitting under my belt, I'm finding the 3x3 rib really easy to keep track of and to just knit away on pretty like in the background of doing something else. And it's very easy if I like mess up a stitch to fix as I go. But that's my final work in progress. So once again, you may not see this regularly because I don't know how like diligently I'm going to be working on it, but that's everything I'm working on. I'm in one of those moments where I just have like a million ideas and want to cast on everything, but I know that I'll just get overwhelmed and nothing will get finished. So I was just trying to curb my enthusiasm a little bit, work on things, get them done, you know, finish one thing, start something else, have some self-control. Not my strong suit, but I just have so many ideas. I also had this like quantity of yarn that I bought for a project. That project didn't work out, and it had kind of been just in the back of my mind for so long that I had no idea what I was going to do with this yarn, because it's not even really my color. I think it was originally for a gift that I decided against making, and it's just like I'm too lazy to try and de-stash it. Like for some reason, I just had a bee in my bonnet that I really wanted to use this yarn for something. I'm not going to cast it on anytime soon, but I know when I do come to that time, I know what I'm going to cast on with it. So I've got like a queue and with it yarn assigned to projects. I'm feeling good about that. And yeah, if only I could just do craft all day, every day. But sadly, that is not reality. So let me know below what you are working on at the moment. Do you have any exciting knitting plans? Do you have anything that you're excited to cast on? Just tell me whatever you want, but jump down in the comments below. Hit me up on Instagram if you would like. I'm always happy to have a chat and see what you're making. And yeah, I hope you're keeping safe and well. I hope everything is good with you, and I will catch you in the next episode. Bye guys.